Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. It is a victory Saturday after a victory Friday because the Browns won a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and joining me to celebrating that victory is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you on this Saturday morning?
I'm good, man. Thursday night it was like stats was going completely against the eye test because Mike Tomlin has never won a road conference game on a Thursday night. I was like, he's got to win this one. Nope, stats wins again.
The thing that really stood out to me about this game that I feel dumb about and should have bet, I put like a small wager on a parlay on this game, but what I really should be kicking myself for is, of course, the Browns are going to win this game. Who did the Pittsburgh Steelers play on Sunday?
Oh, they played Baltimore, didn't they?
They played a hard-fought game against the Baltimore Ravens, and every time those two teams play, the next week they both underperform.
I still didn't think Cleveland had a chance of winning that football game.
Yeah, I didn't either. And Winston even threw his interception, and they didn't really lean on Nick Chubb as much as I thought they would, but I think the weather, Pittsburgh definitely looked drained. And they also look like a team that wanted to do as little as possible and get a win.
Yeah.
Also, have to add in, Kevin Stefanski looked like he was dealing with the weather better than Mike Tomlin, which, I don't know, some people seem to think that matters, but Tomlin looked like he was awfully cold.
He was not ready.
Do you think this game will lead to something down the road for this Browns team? Do you think they can maybe put a couple of wins together, or at least not end the season with 5 wins?
I mean, I really was shocked. The defense really played well, but maybe Pittsburgh, maybe it was just the Baltimore hangover. I guess we'll find out when they play again here in a couple weeks. I do think what happened in the back of the end zone on that Hail Mary may be the tipping point for the league for not throwing flags on Hail Marys, though. I
think that's a good point. Hail Marys have become basically Fury Road where anything goes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's one of those things that I don't think the league really gives a shit about. I like, the fans don't care about it. Guys can get ripped down. Nobody cares.
Well, I don't know, man. When it starts leading to possible fist fights on the sidelines because the defensive back carries the wide receiver off the field, I think it might start to matter. I mean, maybe not.
I think it'll be easy for people to say that that's just a Pickens thing. Like, it'll be easy for them to point to just him and like, oh no, that guy's a problem. It's not. There's not a bigger problem. It's just that guy, because that's what. I mean, let's be honest, Jimmy. That's what our society's been doing for decades now. No. There isn't a bigger problem here. It's just that one guy. He's the problem. We got to get rid of him. I do think you make a good point that the more things are let go and the worse officiating gets, the more clamor there's going to be to do something about it, because we've seen 2 Thursday night games end on horrific no calls where quarterbacks got blasted in the helmet, which is supposed to be a straight penalty. And when we see, Burrow and Darnold clearly got hit in the helmet. Clearly got hit in the helmet, and people are trying to understand how that doesn't get flagged. But, my guy on Sunday just sort of tackled the quarterback, but maybe landed on him a little hard, and they're throwing a flag. How do you understand those two things? But that gets into a bigger problem the league has with officiating in general.
That's fair.
Which we've talked about, and I don't know what the league's going to do about their poor officiating.
I don't know either.
The Browns are now 3-8. They travel to the Broncos next week for Monday Night Football at Elevation. They always seem to play poorly in that stadium, so I'm not expecting much of a run here. And I think the Steelers team that they're going to see in 2 weeks is going to be a lot different than the Steelers team they saw on Thursday.
It's going to be a pissed off Steelers team in 2 weeks in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they'll still be battling for the division.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to do with this Browns team, man. I really don't.
We talked about it. You can't have a performance like you had against the Saints. What players are individually going to try to put good tape out there to further their careers? And we saw a lot of hustle out of the Cleveland Browns, which is something that has been missing for a big portion of the season. So we'll see how it goes. I think kind of feels like everybody is quickly cementing themselves with Jameis as the gap quarterback while you run through the last couple of years of the talent on this team. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, so I could probably get behind that.
It's going to be an ugly 2 years.
Oh, I agree.
It's going to be an ugly next 2 years because of the cap ramifications of the Watson contract and the age of this roster and how I don't want to hear it anymore about the talent on this roster. They're not talented. They're not good. They're a 3-8 football team. They are horrifically inconsistent. The effort that they showed Thursday night compared to the effort they showed against the Saints in some of the other games this year is just unacceptable. Yeah, and I don't know how they fix the consistency thing, man. It's been a problem this organization has had for basically as long as I can remember. And I don't know how you fix that with Jameis Winston, who is the definition of an inconsistent quarterback.
Well, but maybe with Jameis, while his performance is inconsistent, it feels like his attitude and his energy is pretty consistent, and maybe that's what they need. Because I don't remember us ever questioning people lollygagging when Baker was back at quarterback. And maybe that's just what they need with Jameis. Maybe they just need a quarterback who is willing to run down the field and make a tackle when a guy fumbles.
Yeah, what a great piece of tape that was.
Although that was what cost Baker, so maybe he shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean,
but it was still.
But there's a difference. I think Jameis Winston doing that at this point in his career is probably a little different. Or I think Jameis Winston doing that at this point in his career is different than when Baker did that in like year 3 or 4.
Yeah, I would agree though.
I was also like the thing about that play that really worries me is that it was Cedric Tillman makes a play and then fumbles. I know he's a guy that people are looking at and saying, oh, maybe you got something there. And I'm like, I don't know. He looks a lot like DPJ in terms of he's just a guy. And Jerry Jeudy's another guy. Like, oh, he's so talented. He's so talented. Then why does he only play well once every 3 or 4 games?
Yeah.
I don't think they're good. I don't think the future's bright for Cleveland the next 2-3 years. And I don't think drafting a quarterback in the top 10 of next year's draft is the solution to those problems.
Oh, I do not either.
I think they really need to trade back, build up assets for the 20, so this would be the 25 draft. They need to build assets for the 26 and 27 drafts. And kind of just, I know they said they wouldn't do it, and I don't think they should go full tank mode, but they need to look at taking their cap hits the next 2 years and coming out with a clean cap situation, and then look to get your quarterback after you've built some other pieces on this team, because they've got holes on defense they're going to need to be filled. They got holes on offense they're going to need to be filled. And drafting a quarterback next year and bringing somebody in isn't going to solve any of those fucking problems. I know that's what everybody's going to want him to do, and that's what the front office is probably going to want to do because Haslam's going to tell him that's what he wants to do. But that is not a solution. It is a quick fix, and that is all this team seems to want to do is quick fixes.
But with the quarterback, though, I think unless you are going to do the cap suicide of cutting Deshaun Watson, I don't think you should bring a rookie quarterback into that situation. Just myself personally, I think that's.
I think in general, as long as Watson's contract is on the books, it completely erases any benefit of bringing in a rookie quarterback.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Like it immediately takes away the advantage of being able to spend money in other places. So I would trade back from their pick, trying to recoup multiple picks in the first and second round from a team that wants to trade up to draft one of these 4 quarterbacks that everybody tells me, if they were in last year's draft, would have been second-round picks.
Yep.
Use the panic of another team to make yourself better instead of being the team that panics and makes themselves worse. Build out the defense, build out the offense, find the pieces so that you know when you draft that rookie quarterback in 2 years, 3 years, the money that you're saving on him can be spent on re-signing those guys to long-term contracts. And then when those contracts come up 2-3 years down the line, you can make your decision on how much you're going to pay that quarterback you just signed. Like, that's how this should work. It's basic math. And for how smart all of these guys in the Browns front office are, they don't seem to get it.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I keep hearing how smart they are with the cap.
Was an interesting way for us to celebrate Victory Thursday.
Yeah, it was an interesting way, but I celebrate. It was a fun game to watch. I love watching football in the snow, and I just don't think we're going to see many more wins the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I do think it's important though for this team to fight, because I think the difference between 6 and fewer wins and 7 and more wins, I still think is a big mark, because they have not won fewer than 7 games since Kevin Stefanski became the coach. In fact, since 2018, when Baker first got drafted. Yep. They won 7 and 18, they won 7 and 19, they won 11 and 20, and then even when things were going bad in 21 and 22, they still managed to win 7 games. And I just think that puts you in that mediocre category, not bad.
And we're okay just meddling in mediocre until we can get really good is okay.
Yeah, especially with their situation with the cap and the roster. I don't know what else they can do.
Yep, I totally agree.
Well, let's talk about some other teams. There are some just big lines. And we talked about it last week about how home dogs have done really well this year and dogs in general have done really well this year. So there's plenty of fodder for people who want to make bets in line with that. And it starts with the Detroit Lions, who just continue to roll. They're taking on Indianapolis in Indy. 7.5-point favorites are the Lions. 50.5 is the over-under. Minus 410 for the Lions, plus 320 for the Colts. Hey, Jimmy, are you like, you have consistently not believed in the Detroit Lions? Are you wavering?
No. I was shocked that nobody got fired in Jacksonville after the result of that game.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm not. No. Give me the Colts and the over.
Wow. I think Detroit's going to, again, just demolish a inferior team, because they're the team this year, like the Dolphins were last year. If you're an inferior team, they just destroy you. I also like your idea that we had last week that I used, which is put Lions players in parlays to score touchdowns, because they're going to score a lot of touchdowns. Yep. Montgomery and Gibbs are going to score, and I would do that parlay, and then probably do another parlay where you add in Amon-Ra, and I don't know, is Laporta back? I haven't checked yet.
No, I don't believe so. But yeah, if you followed
was it Jameson's their other receiver?
Yeah, if you loved the Lions last week and followed our advice, that parlay paid pretty well.
Yeah, and I think you can do it again this week. The Colts aren't a good football team. They're just not. They're average to middling. But you think they're going to be able to keep this game close?
Yeah, I think the Colts have a really good roster. I've said that from the start. I think the Colts are one of the 4 teams in the league that, if they had a quarterback, would be a very good team. And Anthony Richardson can throw a deep ball, and Detroit's defense gets lazy when they score points. And I think this could be very much like the Texans game was.
Interesting. So maybe it'd be worth it to throw some of those Indy receivers into that touchdown parlay as well. Yeah,
I mean, Richardson's going to throw bombs. Yeah. Can't complete any other passes. So,
but you go throw bombs.
So I think if you could do an over on Richardson's rush attempts and over on his yards rushing with anytime touchdown, I like that. And then probably a Michael Pittman anytime touchdown is probably a good bet.
I like it. Up next, we see the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers. They are 10.5-point road favorites. 43 is the over-under, minus 650 for Kansas City, plus 470 for Carolina. Kansas City coming off their first loss in basically a year. They also haven't shown any want to blow teams out. So I feel like Carolina is going to cover this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that like part of me wants to think they're going to be like, let's just take revenge on how annoyed we are on these poor Panthers. But I just don't think that's what they're looking to do this year. I think they are looking to perfect their playoff script, and that isn't blowing teams out. So I agree. I think Carolina can cover this. I like the under too, actually.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like the under. That Patrick Mahomes has to stop throwing interceptions. I know he looked like this last year during the regular season, and as soon as they hit the playoffs, he looked awesome.
Yeah.
But for me to have a lot of confidence in betting Kansas City during the regular season to do anything except win games, it's tough. It's just tough. And he and Woods don't seem to have that chemistry yet on the deep ball. Once that clicks, oh boy.
Yep.
Plus they get Pacheco back this week, it seems. That will help them because Kareem Hunt's been playing really well for them, but I think Pacheco's more of a bruiser and can really give them when you have Pacheco at say 10 to 15 carries and Hunt at 5 to 10 carries, I think that's the mix that they want to be at.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Up next, Jimmy, we get it. It's the Tommy DeVito show in New York as Daniel Jones has been released. The New York Giants hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bakers are 6-point favorites. 41 is the over-under, minus 285 for Tampa Bay, plus 230 for the Giants. What are you expecting from Tommy DeVito, baby?
Nothing.
That's probably the right answer.
Finally, an offense so bad I don't have to worry about the Tampa Bay defense. Like,
yeah, it's probably not a worry for Tampa Bay. I like them to win this game. I think is Mike Evans playing this week? I think he's coming back.
Yes, he's supposed to come back.
So that the offense has looked mostly fine without Mike Evans and Godwin. I think Baker's played really well. I think they've found ways to move the football and get points on the board. That defense has been a real problem for them. And lo and behold, they've still got a chance for that division, which is pretty crazy. Atlanta really should have put that away a while ago.
Yeah, man. Boy, did you call that game last week, man.
Yeah. Oh, I should mention, Atlanta is one of the teams on the bye. Cincinnati, Buffalo, the New York Jets, Jacksonville, and New Orleans are also on the bye. Up next, the Houston Texans are hosting the Tennessee Titans. 8 is the line here for the Texans. 40.5 is the over-under, minus 380 for Houston, plus 300 for Tennessee. Tennessee's going to be looking for a new quarterback next year, Jimmy. So can Houston... The defense in Tennessee looks okay. Can Houston put up enough points with how much they've sort of been struggling to cover this 8?
Yes. Yes.
Joe Mixon's been a revelation for them, man.
Yeah, and I imagine they'll work Nico Collins back in even more. If the stupid NFL officials would have just let a cool play stand at the start of that game last week, they win that by another touchdown. So,
yeah.
I know it was a penalty, but it was a really cool play to start the game. Just let them have it. Damn.
Yeah.
But no, Houston has a real problem. They haven't scored a offensive second half touchdown in like 3 weeks. So they got to get that part. They got to get that figured out. But I don't think you're going to have to. I think Tennessee's pretty close to their evaluation stage of these 4 quarterbacks coming out in the draft.
1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of Cleveland Browns, New Orleans Saints effort out of the Tennessee Titans in this one. So, yeah, I think the Texans they might be able to win this one 10-0.
Yeah. All right, I'll take Houston in this one then too. Up next, we have the Washington Armada hosting the Dallas Cowboys. 10.5 is the spread. 45.5 is the over-under. Minus 600 for Washington. Plus 440 for Dallas. I think I like Dallas in this game because the Cliff Kingsbury second half swoon seems to be in full effect.
Man, I don't know. Dallas is just so bad. I'm gonna take the Armada here. I think.
Okay. I just think it's just too many points.
I don't know, man. Dallas, they got to lose a lot of games if they want Shador and Dion. So.
I don't like. This is another one of those stupid media creations. They just paid Dak Prescott. He has a no-trade clause. He can't be cut. So what? They're going to go sign Shedeur Sanders and bring on Dion, and then what? What are they going to do with Dak Prescott? Like, this is the classic. To who? He gets to decide where he goes. He has a no-trade clause.
True.
Like,
You're not wrong.
Who wants him at $50+ million? Like, I just like this is the nonsense that we get from media. Like we had all last year during the NBA season. It's like, is LeBron James going to demand a trade? Well, LeBron James can't demand a trade until after the season's over because of how he signed his contract. He's not even eligible to be traded. But I guess let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story.
If it was any other owner, I would be 100% on board with you, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's exactly what Jerry did.
Yeah, he's a bad GM, and bad GM's bad GM, so I guess there's a possibility there. Up next, the New England Patriots are traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Miami 7.5-point favorites. 46.5 is the over-under. Minus 395 for the Dolphins. Plus 310 for the Patriots. And no, I'm not making these numbers up. Like, the lowest favorite so far of the ones that I've mentioned has been Tampa Bay at minus 285.
Yep.
Miami looks like they're kind of getting their stuff back together, but Drake May looks like a pretty good quarterback. Jimmy, what are you expecting here?
Yeah, the game's in Miami, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm taking the Dolphins.
Yeah, New England that place has just been a house of horrors for New England.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to have to do some exorcisms to get those curses out of there. So
yeah, plus Miami needs this to keep their thin playoff hopes alive.
Yep, and but I do agree. I think Drake May is playing well. The roster's just bad. Like, the defense has been on the field a lot. They're clearly tired and run down, and having to chase all those guys for Miami around is a rough ask.
Yeah, I agree. Up next, finally, a game with a lower point spread. The Minnesota Vikings traveling to Chicago to take on the Bears. Minnesota 3.5-point favorites. 39's the over-under. Minus 166 for the Vikings. Plus 140 for the Bears. Sam Darnold Pumpkin Watch has sort of been held off. Do you think he can continue his good play?
It appears to be so. I'm shocked, but it appears to be what's happening. So I just don't trust anything that's happening in Chicago, so I got to take the Vikings.
I'm with you. I'll take the Vikings. The Bears don't look right. The coaching situation's bad. Just that team looks like that Washington Hail Mary really just upended their season, and they've never recovered.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think this is the game that they're going to recover either.
I would agree.
I do like the over. That 39.5 is pretty low, and Minnesota's shown that they can score points, and Chicago's shown that they can score a little bit as well. So I would not be surprised if this is like a, 27-17 type game.
Yeah, 39 is a low number.
Yeah. Up next, the Denver Broncos traveling to Vegas to take on the Raiders. Broncos are 6-point favorites. 41.5 is the over-under. Minus 258 for the Broncos. Plus 210 for the Raiders. Is there any hope for the Raiders?
No.
Yeah,
No.
I don't think so either. That team's just bad.
They're just bad, and Bo Nix is playing pretty well, and the Broncos seem to know what they are with a good head coach. That goes a long way.
Yeah, Sean Payton really seems to have figured things out for what they want to do on that team. They play good defense, and he's getting as much out of Bo Nix as I think you can get out of Bo Nix. So kudos to them. Jimmy, the Green Bay Packers are hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Like, last night, this was a 3.5-point spread.
Yeah.
Now it is 5.5. The over-under is 44, plus 200 for San Francisco, minus 245 for Green Bay. What happened here that I missed?
Everybody in Wisconsin. I mean, it's weird, but I think people are really turning on San Francisco, man.
I mean, I know that defense isn't very good, and the offense hasn't looked very good with all of the injuries and the problems that they've had. Brock Purdy's been, I think, okay, but I think Brock Purdy's been as good this year as he was last year. The difference is the talent around him.
Exactly.
What worries me about Green Bay in this game is the inconsistencies that we've seen from Jordan Love. And that offense in general at times looks unstoppable, and then at other times looks very stoppable.
Yeah, they have a blueprint. They have a blueprint for what they want to do, and it's just whether or not Jordan Love gets out of the way of it or not. I think Josh Jacobs might have been announced as active last night. So that may have had something to do with it, too, that they got their number one running back back.
Yeah, his injury designation has been removed.
So that may have had a little bit to do with it. But I think it's just more people don't know what the heck to do with San Francisco.
They look like they're going to miss the playoffs.
It's a very real possibility with how drunk the NFC is right now. So
right now, their only path is to win the division.
Yes.
Because they are 2.5 games behind Washington. Washington has 7 wins. The Niners have 5. And it's just the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers are 8, 9, and 10 at 5 and 5. And the problem San Francisco has is right now they don't have any tiebreakers because they lost to the Rams and they lost to the Seahawks. And I think they also lost to Arizona earlier this year. So
yes.
That's a real problem for them because they're 1-3 in the division and they're 3-4 in the conference. So they're looking very difficult. It's very tough for them in terms of tiebreakers. And Arizona 6-4, man. Who knew? Speaking of Arizona, they're traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks in a huge game for the NFC West.
This game is going to be crazy.
Seattle 1-point home favorites. 47.5 is the over-under. -108 for Arizona. -112 for Seattle. I don't know what to make of this game because I don't know what to make of either of these two fucking teams.
Dude, I'm taking Arizona. I think they've earned it at this point. I still have Kyler probably in the bottom half of starting quarterbacks in the league, but he's getting the job done right now, and the roster is just good enough to win some close games. So I'm going to take the Cardinals.
I'm going to take Seattle because I feel like this is a big game, and Kyler Murray has a history of not showing up in big games.
That's fair.
So I have a lot of season-long money, so I'm probably not going to bet this game, but it would really help me if Seattle won.
I hear that.
Up next, another big game in the NFC. The Philadelphia Eagles are traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. Eagles are 3-point favorites. 49's the over-under. -155 for Philly, +130 for the Rams. Rams got to have this game if they want any chance of making the playoffs. Philly, maybe an outside chance to try and get the 1 seed. They're 8-2, a game behind Detroit. I still don't trust this Philly team, though.
I think there's a strong difference between trusting the Philly team and being honest about how much better their roster is than every team in the NFC except the Lions.
That's fair.
I think you don't have to trust them to recognize that most weeks their talent is just going to beat teams.
Yeah, with Saquon and those two receivers, the offense really hums even when Hurts isn't running and not playing his best.
And they've still got all those dogs on the line. So
yeah, and that can cause problems. And the Rams have had trouble on the offensive line, so I think that's smart. I do think this is an over, too.
Yeah, I like the over, and I like the Eagles here.
Our final game of the week, Monday night, the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. 2.5-point favorites are the Ravens. 51 is the over-under. -142 for Baltimore, +120 for the Chargers. Man, do I really want to take the Chargers in this game, Jimmy. A lot of things make me want to take the Chargers in this game. Are you going to try and talk me out of it?
No, I'm on the Chargers for this game. I think, even though their coaching staff has changed, in the AFC, the Chargers were one of the first teams defensively to figure out how to slow down Lamar Jackson. I don't think that's ever really changed. I think the Chargers can frustrate Baltimore and make them make mistakes. I love the Chargers here. I love the Chargers in this spot.
I also like the Chargers. Baltimore coming off that tough game against Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And the Chargers are going to try to run the ball and bully them a little bit. So I like the Chargers in the second half of this game specifically to play very well. And the Chargers can attack Baltimore in multiple ways. Herbert's going to be able to throw on them, and they're going to be able to run on them because of how beat up they are from that Pittsburgh game. So I'm with you. I like the Chargers here.
Yeah, let's go Chargers.
What kind of parlays should people be looking at? This is a week that just screams 7-point teasers. Because you've got Detroit 7.5, Kansas City 10.5, Houston 8, Washington 10.5, Miami 7.5. Just some big spreads.
Yeah, I guess the first thing I would say with how big some of these numbers are, probably stay away from money lines.
Yeah, you're not going to get anything from the money lines.
You're not going to get any value unless you think some of these dogs can outright win. That now, because there are some big numbers on that side of the board. So if you think some of these dogs can pull out a win, go ahead and throw them in parlays. But I'm probably looking. It just, man, I believe Tampa. I believe Tampa covers easy. I believe Miami covers easy. I believe Carolina is going to cover that spread. So those are probably three. Like I like that flip on that. So I'm probably looking there, and then because I am willing to recognize what Detroit is doing, I'll probably have Detroit in some parlays too.
So that parlay that you just mentioned, the Dolphins to cover the 7.5, Tampa to cover the 6, and Carolina to cover the 10.5 is a plus 617 on DraftKings right now.
Yep.
Like, that's super big odds if you think those teams are going to be able to keep it close, those are great odds if you think Tampa and Miami can win their games easily and Carolina can keep it close.
Yep, it's good odds for 3 bets.
Yeah. I worry about Carolina being in that bet because I can just picture that game getting out of hand early because Kansas City's defense just shuts down Bryce Young.
Yeah,
which is what worries me about that game. It's sort of it's this sort of poisoned option either way. Kansas City hasn't shown much want to blow teams out or do anything too spectacular to win games. And Carolina's just a bad football team. So
and it's just
Bryce Young could cover this spread on his own by giving up 2 pick sixes.
Yeah, but it's so easy to look at these spreads and go, man, none of these games are going to be close. But
yeah,
these big dogs this year have been outright winning football games.
Yeah. So I would look more Miami to cover and Tampa to cover is plus 272 as a 2-pick parlay.
Not even bad.
No,
maybe you could throw, if you could throw the over or the under, if you like that in one of them and get a same game parlay boost.
Yeah.
Like you can have nice odds there.
Yeah. And then I like Detroit's going to score a bunch of touchdowns. I think you should bet there, guys.
I think if you're building any player parlays, I think at this point, Joe Mixon anytime touchdown scorer and probably Joe Mixon first touchdown is probably a really good number to go with.
Yeah. And I like points to be scored in the Baltimore Chargers game. Even though the Chargers have had a really good defense. Man, now I'm talking myself out of that one. I think I like the under. It's 51. No, it's just, that's a big number. And Baltimore, after they get pass happy, tends to run the ball more. The Chargers are going to want to run the ball and try to lean on that Baltimore team. So I do think they're not going to quite get there. This feels like maybe like a 27. Well, they'd have to get to 27-25 to get the over. So yeah, I think I do like the under on that one the more I think about it. Now watch, they put up like 40 points in the first half. Well, that's it. I don't know if we've ever mourned a loss as much as we did today with the Browns beating the Steelers. It is always great when the Browns beat the Steelers because I fucking hate them.
Yeah, because it's fair though. Like it's okay to be super happy with the win, but also still try to look out for the season and the next 2 years. It are still could be very lean times for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, it's not looking good. Sorry to be doom and gloom, everyone. Well, on that note, Jimmy, it was fun. We've got Thanksgiving coming up here next week, so we'll figure out when we'll record for that. All of you out there have a good Thanksgiving. And Jimmy, thanks for joining me today.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
And we want to thank all of you for listening. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.